Lead generation agencies, best practices to hire. Why hiring a lead generation agency is a sales decision, not a gamble. Hiring a lead generation agency should feel like adding a predictable pipeline engine, not rolling the dice on more leads. When it works, your reps get into real conversations with the right buyers, and your calendar fills with meetings that actually convert. When it doesn't, you pay for activity, get unqualified calls on the books, and spend months undoing the damage to your brand and deliverability. The economics alone demand discipline. The average cost per lead sits around $198 across industries, and SaaS benchmarks hover near $188, which means mediocre lead quality gets expensive fast. If an outsourced partner can't explain how they'll beat those unit economics or justify a premium with higher conversion, you're not buying lead generation, you're buying uncertainty. Outsourcing is also mainstream now, which is why the bar is higher. About 59% of companies outsource some part of lead generation, and roughly 66% of U.S. businesses prefer outsourcing lead gen to reduce cost and keep internal teams focused on closing. The opportunity is real, but so is the risk. Without a clear framework, the wrong agency can quietly burn 6 figures in budget and lost deals. What lead generation agencies actually do and what they can't fix. At their best, lead generation agencies function like an outsourced SDR agency. They build lists, run cold email sequences, execute LinkedIn outreach, and operate a cold calling team to create sales-qualified conversations. In other words, they're a front-end outbound sales agency that's measured by qualified meetings, opportunities created, and pipeline, not by vanity stats like emails sent or dials logged. The best cold calling services and cold email agency partners don't just push volume. They translate your ICP into targeting rules, craft messaging that earns replies, and use consistent follow-up across channels so prospects recognize your name before they ever agree to a meeting. If you're hiring a B2B sales agency for outbound, you're really paying for judgment. Who to target, what to say, when to say it, and how to improve it every week. What agencies can't do is magically fix fundamentals. If your positioning is unclear, your offer isn't competitive, or your sales process collapses after discovery, no amount of B2B cold calling services will save ROI. Agencies can help you pressure test messaging and increase top-of-funnel volume, but they can't compensate for product-market fit issues or consistently poor conversion after the first call. When outsourcing makes economic sense versus building in-house, most teams explore sales outsourcing because they want predictable output without the fixed overhead of hiring, ramping, and managing. A single, fully loaded in-house SDR commonly costs $110,000 to $150,000 annually when you include compensation, tools, management time, and overhead. That can be a smart investment, but only if you can hire well, coach consistently, and absorb ramp time and turnover. A well-run outsourced sales team can be more efficient when speed matters. In strong programs, outsourcing can reduce customer acquisition costs by an estimated 25 to 40% and ramp outreach up to 3 times faster because the tools, management, and process already exist. The catch is that you don't set it and forget it. You still need an internal owner who treats the partner like an extension of revenue, not a black box vendor. Use a simple comparison to pressure test the decision before you sign anything. If an agency can't clearly articulate where they sit on cost, speed, and accountability, you're likely buying an activity shop instead of a real sales development agency. Do this internal prep before you talk to cold calling companies. Your results will be capped by how well you define who and what counts. Before you evaluate a cold calling agency or pay-per-meeting lead generation provider, lock down your ICP, your qualification rules, and your definition of a good meeting. If your AEs would decline the meeting invite, it doesn't count, no matter how impressive the agency's activity numbers look. Next, get your funnel math straight so vendor pricing doesn't confuse you. Start with your revenue target, back into required pipeline, then opportunities, then qualified meetings, then what you can afford per meeting based on your close rate and ACV. The baseline reality is that average CPL is around $198 and SaaS around $188, so your agency should either beat that efficiency or deliver materially higher quality that improves conversion downstream. Finally, set up the operational plumbing before launch. Decide how meetings will be tagged in your CRM, how attribution works, first touch, last touch, or multi-touch, and how you'll review call recordings, email copy, and objection handling. The fastest way to fail with sales agency partners is to outsource execution while leaving ownership undefined. If you can't describe a good meeting in one sentence, you're not outsourcing lead generation, you're outsourcing confusion. How to evaluate lead generation agencies using the right KPIs. The best vendor conversations sound like pipeline planning, not marketing theater. Push every agency to explain their model for targeting, messaging, and multi-channel sequencing, and then force it into numbers. Expected cost per qualified meeting, expected meeting to opportunity rate, and expected pipeline created in the first 60 to 90 days. If they won't commit to measurement, they're not operating like a serious B2B sales outsourcing partner. Insist on transparency in reporting and proof of work. You should be able to see account lists, email templates, daily activity, reply categories, booked meetings, show rates, and outcomes after the meeting, opportunity created or disqualified with a reason. The moment an agency hides behind proprietary methods, you're one step away from paying for calendar filler. Also evaluate how they handle risk and control. Favor flexible agreements over rigid long-term contracts, and make sure you can approve messaging, review recorded calls, and pause outreach quickly if something looks off. A good outsourced SDR program gives you leverage, the ability to iterate weekly without renegotiating the relationship. Common mistakes that make pay-per-appointment lead generation backfire. The most expensive mistake is optimizing for the wrong output. Pay-per-appointment lead generation sounds attractive until you realize it can incentivize low-quality bookings, weak qualification, and anyone with a calendar meetings. If you choose a pay-per-meeting model, protect yourself by tightly defining qualification, requiring notes and call context, and measuring pipeline created, not just meetings booked. Another common failure is treating outsourced lead gen like a vendor handoff instead of a revenue workflow. Sales leaders who don't run weekly stand-ups, don't route AE feedback back into targeting, and don't refine objections will see performance drift. The data supports why this happens. While 49% of B2B companies say they'd consider outsourced sales development, 59% have never tried it. So many buyers don't realize how much management and iteration is required to make outsourcing actually work. Finally, teams underestimate the deliverability and brand risk of sloppy outbound. Cold email at scale can burn domains, and aggressive B2B cold calling can damage reputation if scripts are generic or dishonest. The fix is simple but non-negotiable. Approve messaging, monitor quality, and demand real-time reporting so you can correct issues before they become systemic. How to run onboarding and optimization like a high-performing outbound team. A strong start is mostly execution discipline. In week 1, you should be finalizing ICP segments, building a clean target list, writing message variants, and aligning on objection handling before you scale volume. Whether you hire SDRs internally or outsource to an SDR agency, the first month is about learning what resonates, which titles engage, and where qualification breaks. Use realistic productivity benchmarks to keep expectations grounded. Average reps tend to book 8 to 10 qualified meetings per month, while top performers hit 12 to 15. And those numbers should inform your forecast for an outsourced SDR or cold calling team. If a provider promises drastically higher output without explaining why your market is different, assume you're being sold a spreadsheet. Optimization should be a weekly operating rhythm, not a quarterly post-mortem. Review meetings that converted, listen to calls, categorize objections, adjust the list, and keep iterating the offer and CTA. The teams that win with outsourced sales programs treat Outbound as a system, tight feedback loops, clear accountability, and constant message refinement. Where the market is heading and how SalesHive fits into a modern selection process. In 2025, the best lead gen partners look less like telemarketing shops and more like specialized revenue operators. Buyers expect multi-channel execution, clean attribution, rapid iteration, and technology that improves relevance at scale. That's also why outsourcing has become normal. With 59% of companies outsourcing some portion of lead generation, you're no longer early. You're simply choosing how to build pipeline efficiently. At SalesHive, we've built our model around that expectation. A combined outbound engine that blends list building services, cold email, LinkedIn outreach services, and cold calling services with a dedicated strategy layer and transparent reporting. Since 2016, we've focused specifically on B2B sales development, supporting an outsourced sales team model with US-based and Philippines-based SDR options, and an in-house platform designed to keep quality and accountability high across channels. Your next step is to run a disciplined selection process. Define your ICP and good meeting. Set North Star KPIs, cost per qualified meeting and pipeline created, pressure test transparency, and choose a partner who can operate as a true extension of your revenue team. If you do that, hiring a lead generation agency stops being a leap of faith and becomes a controllable, measurable investment.